AITA for leaving the party after my girlfriend chose her ex over me? I'm Edward, 32, and by the time this happened, Lauren and I had been together long enough that people had started asking when we were finally going to move in together for real. Not because we were teenagers rushing into something, but because we had been acting halfway married for years. She had a drawer at my place. I had a spare charger in her nightstand. I knew she liked oat milk in her coffee, but only from one specific brand because the other one tasted like cardboard. I carried jumper cables in my trunk because hers had been broken for almost a year and she always said she would replace them, then forgot. For a long time, I thought that was love. Remembering the little things. Being steady. Not reacting every time something bothered me. Giving her room to have friends, history, memories, and a life that didn't start the day she met me. That was probably my first mistake. Because Lauren's past had a name, and his name was Chase. Chase was her ex-boyfriend, but he never really acted like an ex. He acted like an unpaid consultant on my relationship. He liked her stories within minutes. He commented on her photos with inside jokes I wasn't supposed to understand. He showed up at group events like he had a permanent invitation stamped on his forehead. If Lauren and I argued, Chase somehow knew. If Lauren posted a song lyric at midnight, Chase somehow responded. If I said anything about it, Lauren had the same answer every time. He's just part of the group, Edward. Or, you can't punish me for having a past. Or my favorite, you're making this weird because you're insecure. I hated that word after a while. Insecure. It became the little bell she rang whenever I got too close to the truth. I wasn't asking her to erase her past. I wasn't telling her she couldn't speak to anyone she dated before me. I was asking her not to hand her ex a front row seat in our relationship and then call me controlling for noticing. At first, I tried to be reasonable. I really did. When Chase texted her checking in after she and I had a disagreement, I asked how he even knew we had argued. She rolled her eyes and said, because he actually listens when I talk. When Chase commented, still my favorite troublemaker, on a photo of Lauren in a dress I had bought her for dinner, I asked if maybe that was a little disrespectful. She said, it's a joke. You don't have to analyze every single thing. When she flipped her phone face down as I walked into the room, I asked who she was texting. She smiled too fast and said, nobody. Chase was just being dumb. Just being dumb. Just part of the group. Just a friend. Just a joke. Everything was just something until I reacted, and then suddenly I was the problem. The thing that made it worse was that Lauren didn't act like this all the time. Most days, she was warm, funny, and easy to be around. She could make an ordinary grocery run feel like a date. She remembered my mother's birthday. She could sit beside me on the couch with her feet under my leg and make me feel like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. That was what kept me in it. The good parts were real enough to make me question whether I was overreacting to the bad parts. But the bad parts started getting louder. In our group chat, which was stupidly named Game Night Degenerates, Lauren would make little comments about me that sounded harmless if you didn't know the pattern. Edward needs a schedule for spontaneous plans. Edward thinks fun requires a reservation. Edward just discovered people can stay out past 10. Everybody would throw in laughing emojis, and I'd usually ignore it. Nobody wants to be the guy who can't take a joke. But Chase would always jump in with something like, that's why she used to date chaos. Lauren would respond with, at least chaos was fun. I'd stare at my phone, feel my stomach tighten, then put it down. If I said something, she would say I embarrassed her over a joke. If I didn't, it sat in my chest like a stone. About a week before the party that ended everything, Marcus gave me the first real warning. Marcus was one of the few people in the group who didn't feed off drama. He was the type of guy who would rather quietly leave a barbecue than watch two drunk people argue beside the grill. We weren't best friends, but I trusted him because he didn't exaggerate. We were outside a small get-together, standing near his truck while he looked for his keys, when he said, can I say something without you thinking I'm trying to start stuff? That is never a sentence that leads to anything good. I said sure. He scratched the side of his face and looked back toward the house. I don't like how Chase talks about Lauren. I didn't answer right away. Marcus continued, not like he misses her. More like he thinks he still has access. That landed harder than I wanted it to. What exactly did he say? I asked. Marcus sighed. Just little stuff. Like if you and Lauren ever actually break up, she'll be back on schedule. Or that she gets bored when things are too stable. I felt heat move up my neck, but I kept my voice even. Did Lauren hear that? Not that time. But Chase doesn't talk like a guy who respects your relationship. That's all I'm saying. I thanked him. I didn't confront Chase. I didn't interrogate Lauren. I went home that night and sat in my car for a few minutes before going inside, trying to talk myself down. Maybe Marcus had misunderstood. Maybe Chase was just an arrogant idiot. Maybe I was doing the thing Lauren accused me of doing, turning everything into evidence. The next Friday, there was a house party at Tessa's place. Not a huge party, just one of those casual game nights that accidentally becomes louder than planned. Folding chairs in the backyard. Red plastic cups on the kitchen island. A cooler by the back door. Chips and salsa everywhere. Half-finished board games on the dining table because nobody could agree on rules after the second drink. Lauren was excited about it all week. I wasn't. Not because I hated parties. Because I knew Chase would be there. When I picked Lauren up, she was wearing jeans, a black top, and the earrings she always wore when she wanted people to notice her. She got into my car, leaned over, kissed my cheek, and immediately said, "Please don't start being weird tonight." I hadn't even put the car in reverse. I looked at her. "We haven't even left yet." "I know," she said, buckling her seatbelt. "I'm just saying. Chase is going to be there. Don't make it a thing." "I'm not the one who makes it a thing." She stared out the windshield and sighed like I had already disappointed her. "Edward." That was it. Just my name, said like a warning. At the party, Chase was already in the kitchen when we arrived. Of course he was. He was leaning against the counter with a beer in his hand, laughing at something Nolan said. The second he saw Lauren, his face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. "Trouble's here," he said. Lauren grinned. "You wish." I felt Marcus glance at me from across the room. It wasn't pity exactly. More like he was checking whether I had seen what everyone else pretended not to see. For the first hour, things were fine. I talked to Marcus and Tessa's boyfriend near the back door. Lauren floated around the kitchen with Brianna and Tessa. Chase told loud stories. Someone kept changing the music on the Bluetooth speaker. People complained that the salsa was too spicy while continuing to eat it. Then Lauren had another drink. Then Chase moved closer. Then the night started doing what I had been afraid it would do. It began with old memories. Chase brought up some road trip from years ago where Lauren apparently got them lost because she insisted she knew a shortcut. Lauren laughed so hard she touched his arm. "Oh my God, I forgot about that," she said. "No, you didn't," Chase said. "You just don't tell that story now because Edward probably needs GPS to find the bathroom." A few people laughed. Not hard. Awkwardly. I smiled without showing my teeth and took a sip of water. Lauren looked at me and said, "He kind of does." That got a bigger laugh. I told myself to let it go. One joke. One dumb comment. I wasn't going to make a scene because Chase wanted one. Later, we were all in the living room. Someone had pulled chairs into a messy circle, and a card game was happening that I was technically part of, but barely following. Lauren sat 2 seats away from me because Chase had dropped into the chair beside her before I could. At some point, Chase stretched his arm along the back of her chair. Not around her shoulders. Not technically touching her. Just close enough to make the point. Lauren didn't move. I waited. She still didn't move. Instead, she leaned back and laughed at something he whispered. I caught her eye. She looked away first. That told me more than an argument would have. When the next round started, Chase said, "See, Lauren still knows how to have fun." Lauren looked straight at me and said, "Edward plans everything. Chase just gets it." The room got quieter. Not silent yet. Just quieter in the way people get when they realize a joke is about to become a problem. Tessa looked down at her drink. Brianna said, "Okay, next card," too brightly. I stood up and said, "Lauren, can I talk to you for a second?" She made a face. About what? Just for a second. She followed me toward the hallway, but not far enough to be private. Maybe that was on purpose. I kept my voice low. "You're embarrassing me." Her eyes narrowed. "Seriously? I'm not doing this in front of people. But you know exactly how this looks." "How what looks?" Chase's arm on your chair. The comments. Comparing me to him. She laughed once, sharp and mean. "Maybe if you knew how to relax, I wouldn't have to talk to someone who actually gets me." She said it loud enough for everyone to hear. That was the moment the room finally went quiet. Even the music felt too loud. I looked past her and saw Chase smiling into his beer like he had just watched his team score. And something in me settled. Not broke. Settled. Because until then, part of me had still been trying to give her an exit ramp. Maybe she was tipsy. Maybe she was caught up in attention. Maybe she didn't understand how bad it looked. But when she raised her voice, when she made sure everyone heard her, I realized this wasn't an accident. It was a performance. I said, I'm going to head out. I'll take you home, and we can talk tomorrow. Lauren crossed her arms. No. Lauren. No, Edward. I'm not leaving because you decided to get jealous. I'm not jealous. I'm done being disrespected in front of our friends. She laughed again, but this time it sounded forced. There it is. Chase stood up slowly, like he had been waiting for his cue. Relax, man. We're all friends here. I didn't even look at him. This isn't between me and you. Lauren grabbed her purse from the couch. I'm going with Chase. Brianna said, Lauren, maybe just. No, Lauren snapped. Then she looked right at me. At least he knows how to take care of me without acting insecure. There are sentences that end arguments, not because they solve anything, but because they show you there is nothing left to argue about. That was one of them. I pulled out my phone and opened the rideshare app. I'll order you a car. I said I'm going with Chase. Chase jingled his keys. I still remember that sound. Small and stupid, but it hit me like a slap. I looked at Lauren and said, clearly enough for the room to hear, if you walk out with your ex tonight, don't call me tomorrow and pretend I misunderstood what happened. She rolled her eyes. You're so dramatic. You don't get to humiliate me in public and come back in private like nothing happened. Chase opened the front door. Lauren walked past me. For 1 second, she paused like she expected me to follow. Like this was the part where I was supposed to chase her, argue with Chase, beg her not to go, prove I cared by humiliating myself. I didn't move. She walked out. The door closed behind them. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Then Nolan muttered, Damn. I picked up my jacket from the arm of the couch. Marcus stepped toward me and said quietly, You good? I nodded, even though I wasn't. You didn't look crazy, man, he said. You looked done. That was exactly how I felt. I drove home alone with the radio off. At a red light, my phone buzzed twice. I thought it might be Lauren. It wasn't. It was Marcus asking me to text him when I got home. I did. Then I sat on the edge of my bed for a long time, still wearing my shoes. The next morning, Lauren called at 8:17. I let it ring. She called again at 8:22. Then came the text. Lauren, are you seriously ignoring me? Another one. Lauren, nothing happened. I slept on his couch. You need to grow up. I stared at the words until they stopped looking like words. Nothing happened. That was the trick. She wanted to shrink the whole night down to whether she slept with Chase. If she hadn't, then I was supposed to apologize for being suspicious. The public insult, the comparison, the leaving with him, the threat to my reputation, all of that was supposed to disappear behind nothing happened. I called her back. She answered with, Finally. I said, Do you want to tell me what really happened, or do you want me to believe the version you already told everyone? There was a pause. Then her voice changed. What is that supposed to mean? It means you left with Chase after insulting me in front of a room full of people. I was drunk. You were sober enough to make a choice. You abandoned me. I offered to drive you home. I offered to order you a car. You left angry. I left because you chose to leave with your ex. She scoffed. You're being controlling. This is exactly why I didn't want to ride with you. You get cold and judgmental and toxic when you don't get your way. There it was. The rewrite. I rubbed my eyes and said, I'm not doing this on the phone. Of course you're not. Because you know you overreacted. No. Because I'm not going to argue with someone who is trying to turn my boundary into abuse. She went quiet. I said, I'll talk when you're ready to be honest. Then I hung up. A minute later, the group chat started moving. Lauren, I'm not doing drama today. I just needed someone safe last night. Brianna, wait, did Edward leave without you? Lauren, he got mad and left. I wasn't going to get in a car with him like that. Tessa, I only saw the end of it. Nolan, yeah, it got awkward. Brianna, are you okay? Lauren, I'm fine. Just sad people show who they are when they're insecure. I read that message 3 times. Insecure. Again. My thumb hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to unload everything. I wanted to remind everyone what she had said, what Chase had done, what the room had heard. Instead, I typed slowly. Me, no. I offered to take her home. I also offered to order her a ride. She chose to leave with Chase after insulting me in front of everyone. No one replied for almost a full minute. Then Marcus wrote, Marcus, that's what happened. Tessa, I didn't hear the whole thing, but I saw the end. Brianna, I don't want to get in the middle. That was funny, because I don't want to get in the middle usually means someone has already picked a side but doesn't want to be accountable for it. I sent one more message. Me, since I'm already being called insecure, I'm going to be clear once. I didn't leave her stranded. I'm done being made into the jealous boyfriend for reacting to disrespect. I'm not arguing in here. Then I muted the chat. I spent the next hour cleaning my apartment, which sounds strange, but I needed to move. I picked up the blanket Lauren always left twisted on my couch. I put her hair ties from my bathroom counter into a small bag. I opened the kitchen cabinet and saw her favorite tea on the second shelf. That almost got me. Not the big betrayal. The tea. The ordinary pieces of her life sitting in mine like nothing had changed. Around noon, Marcus texted me. Marcus, I don't want to be in the middle, but you need to see this. A video came through. It was only 12 seconds long, filmed from somewhere near the kitchen. The angle was messy. Party noise filled the background. Lauren was standing beside Chase near the island, holding a red cup. She didn't know she was being recorded. Or maybe she didn't care. Chase said something I couldn't hear. Lauren laughed and said, "He'll take me back tomorrow. He always does." Then Chase grinned and leaned closer. The video ended. I watched it once. Then again. Then I put my phone face down on the table because my hands were shaking. Not because I was surprised. Because I finally wasn't crazy. A few minutes later, Marcus sent another text. Marcus, I thought maybe I was reading it wrong until I watched the video again. Me, where did you get this? Marcus, I was recording Nolan trying to open that bottle with a lighter. Caught them in the background. Then another message came in. Marcus, there's more. I'm sorry. He sent screenshots. The first one was from before the party. It was Lauren texting Chase. Lauren, if Edward acts boring again tonight, I might need rescuing. Chase, you know I'll take care of you better than he does. Lauren, don't tempt me. Chase, you like being tempted. I sat there staring at that screen while the room felt too bright around me. That was the twist that took away the last excuse. It hadn't been one drunk mistake. It hadn't been a misunderstanding. She had planned the idea of him rescuing her before we even arrived. Before I picked her up. Before she kissed my cheek in the car and told me not to be weird. Before she accused me of ruining the night. I didn't cry. I didn't punch a wall. I didn't call her screaming. I just felt the relationship move from painful to finished. Later that afternoon, another screenshot found its way to me through Marcus. This one came from Nolan, who apparently thought the whole thing was funny until he realized it might blow up the friend group. It was Chase texting Nolan after the party. Chase, she always comes back when she wants drama. Nolan, you trying to get back with her? Chase, hell no. I'm not dating her again. Nolan, then what was last night? Chase, entertainment. She came over, man. I didn't force anything. I actually laughed when I saw that. Not because it was funny. Because Lauren had spent months holding Chase over my head like he was proof that someone understood her better than I did. Like he was the emotional safe place I could never be. Like he was the man who knew her history and accepted her fully. And he was calling her entertainment. That was the ugliest part. She had tried to make me compete with a man who wasn't even taking her seriously. I started packing her things that evening. Not angrily. Carefully. Bathroom stuff in one box. Clothes in another. Books, chargers, makeup, the hoodie she stole from me but always claimed was hers. I made a list in my notes app as I went. Black sweater. Running shoes. Hair dryer. Gold hoop earrings. Green mug. Phone charger. Makeup bag. 2 books. Blue overnight bag. I changed passwords on streaming services. I removed her from my grocery delivery account. I canceled the dinner reservation I had made for the next weekend. We had also booked a small weekend trip for the following month. The deposit was partly refundable, so I canceled it, calculated her portion, and sent it through Venmo with the memo, trip refund. Nothing emotional. Nothing petty. Just clean. Then I texted her. Me, your things are packed. I'll leave them by the door tomorrow between 2 and 4. I sent your portion of the trip refund. Please don't come over unless you're picking up your belongings. She called within 10 seconds. I didn't answer. She called again. Then came the texts. Lauren, are you kidding me? Lauren, you're breaking up with me over one night? Lauren, nothing even happened. Lauren, you're trying to punish me. Lauren, pick up the phone. I replied once. Me, I'm not taking late night calls. Nothing good happens after midnight when accountability is missing. It was 8:43 p.m., but the point stood. The next day, Tessa texted me privately. Tessa, I thought you left her there. That's what she made it sound like. I waited a while before answering. Me. I offered to take her home and order a ride. She chose Chase. Tessa, Marcus showed me the video. Me. Okay. Tessa, the texts change things. Me. They do. Tessa, I'm sorry. I should have asked before assuming. That apology mattered more than I expected. Not because I needed everyone to take my side, but because being lied about in a group of people you know makes you feel like you're standing behind glass. You can see them, but your voice doesn't reach. Brianna didn't apologize. She just stopped defending Lauren in the chat. Nolan sent Marcus a message saying Chase was mad the screenshots got out. Marcus sent me that too, but by then I barely cared. Chase being mad at consequences was not my problem. At 2:15, Lauren showed up. I knew because my doorbell camera picked up her car pulling in. She didn't come alone. Brianna was in the passenger seat. That didn't surprise me. Lauren liked witnesses when she thought they would help her, and privacy when she wanted to rewrite things later. I opened the door, but didn't step aside. Her eyes were red, but her face was angry. You packed my stuff? She said. Yes. You didn't even talk to me. I talked to you yesterday. You called me controlling and toxic. Brianna stood behind her, looking deeply uncomfortable. Lauren lowered her voice. Can we not do this in the doorway? We can talk right here. You're recording me? The camera records the doorway. You know that. She laughed bitterly. Wow. So now I'm dangerous. No. I'm making sure nobody lies about what happens next. That shut her up for a second. Then she said, You made me look insane in front of everyone. I said, I corrected a lie once. You sent people private messages. I sent the video and text to people who were repeating your version. You humiliated me. I looked at her for a long moment. She was standing there in the same black top from the party, her hair pulled back, one hand gripping her keys so tightly her knuckles were pale. I had loved her. That didn't vanish just because I was done. Part of me still wanted the version of her who sat on my couch drinking tea and laughing at dumb shows. But that version did not get to cancel out the one standing in my doorway angry that her plan had been exposed. You humiliated me in front of a room full of people, I said. Then you tried to make me look abusive for having self-respect. I never said abusive. You said toxic and controlling. You implied you needed a safe ride because I left angry. I was drunk, Edward. You texted Chase before the party. Her face changed. Just a little. But enough. Brianna looked at her. Before. Lauren swallowed. It was a joke. Then why did it happen exactly the way you joked about? She looked away. You're making this so much bigger than it was. No. I'm making it exactly as big as it was. You planned to use another man to punish me if I bored you. You insulted me in public. You left with him. Then you woke up and tried to make me the villain. Nothing happened with Chase. I don't care. That surprised her. I said it again. I don't care whether you slept with him. Her mouth opened, then closed. The issue isn't what happened on his couch, I said. The issue is that you used him like a weapon and expected me to apologize for bleeding. Brianna looked down at the porch. Lauren's eyes filled, but her voice stayed sharp. So years together mean nothing because I made one mistake? It wasn't one mistake. It was one night. It was the night I stopped pretending the pattern was normal. She shook her head. You're throwing us away. No. I'm ending it because you used another man to punish me, then expected me to thank you for coming back. For the first time, she looked scared instead of angry. Edward, she said softly. I hated that. The softness. The sudden return of the voice she used when she wanted me to remember the good parts. I loved you, I said. I tried to trust you. I tried not to be the guy who controlled who you talked to. And you took that restraint and treated it like weakness. She wiped under one eye. I didn't think you'd actually leave. I know. That was the saddest part. She hadn't thought I would leave because I had taught her I wouldn't. Every time I accepted the joke, every time I swallowed the disrespect, every time I let her call me insecure instead of naming what she was doing, I had helped build the door she kept walking through. But I didn't have to hold it open anymore. I gave her the first box. She looked at it like it was evidence from a crime scene. This is really what you want? She asked. No, I said. It's what I'm choosing. Brianna helped carry the boxes to the car. Lauren stood by the trunk, crying now, but not loudly. She kept looking at me like she was waiting for me to crack. I didn't. Before she left, she said, Chase said it wasn't even serious. I almost felt bad for her then. Almost. He told Nolan he wasn't trying to date you again, I said. He called it entertainment. Her face went pale. Brianna froze with one hand on the trunk. Lauren whispered, what? I didn't repeat it. I didn't need to. She pulled out her phone and stepped away, probably to call Chase. I watched from the doorway as she paced near the curb. He must have answered, because she started talking fast. I couldn't hear every word, but I heard enough. So you told people that? A pause. Chase, are you serious? Another pause. Then her voice cracked. It wasn't that deep? That's what you're saying. There it was. Karma. Not as some grand punishment, but as a man refusing to play the role she invented for him once it cost him something. Chase wasn't going to defend her. He wasn't going to declare that he loved her. He wasn't going to say he had rescued her from a terrible boyfriend. He was going to shrug and protect himself. Lauren hung up and stood there for a few seconds, staring at nothing. Then she got in Brianna's car. They drove away. After that, the friend group split the way friend groups do when the truth is uncomfortable. Marcus stayed solid. He didn't make speeches. He just checked in and invited me over for a game one weekend with a smaller group where Chase wasn't there. Tessa apologized again in person. She said, I thought you overreacted. Then I saw the texts. I told her, I get why it looked that way from the outside. She shook her head. No, she wanted it to look that way. That was the first time someone else said the thing I had been feeling for months. Brianna never apologized directly, but she stopped posting vague quotes about loyalty and men who abandon women at their lowest. That was enough for me. Nolan tried to act like the screenshots getting out was the real betrayal. I ignored him. Chase sent me one message 3 days later. Chase, she said she didn't want to ride with you. What was I supposed to do? I replied once. Me, you can have the drama. I'm done auditioning for my own relationship. Then I blocked him. Lauren tried every angle over the next 2 weeks. First anger. Lauren, I hope you're proud of yourself. You turned everyone against me. Then sadness. Lauren, I can't sleep. I keep thinking about us. Then nostalgia. Lauren, I found the photo from that rainy weekend. We were happy then. Then guilt. Lauren, I made one bad choice and you're treating me like I never loved you. Then the one that almost worked because it sounded the most human. Lauren, I know I hurt you. I don't know why I keep doing things that make people prove they care. I stared at that message for a long time. That was probably the closest she came to honesty. I typed and deleted several replies before settling on the only one that didn't reopen the door. Me. I hope you figure that out, but I can't be the person you test anymore. She called after that. I didn't answer. Not because I hated her. Because I knew the loop. If I answered, she would cry. If she cried, I would soften. If I softened, we would talk about our good years. If we talked about our good years, the party would become smaller. The text would become a stupid joke. Chase would become a mistake. My boundary would become cruelty. And somehow, by the end, I would be comforting her for betraying me. So I let it ring. A few days later, I dropped off one last item she had missed, a small framed picture from a trip we took 2 summers before. I didn't go to her door. I left it with the rest of her mail in a padded envelope and sent one text. Me. Found this. Leaving it with your mail. She replied, Lauren, do you ever miss me? I did. That was the problem with real relationships. Ending them cleanly doesn't mean your feelings vanish on command. I missed the way she sang half the wrong lyrics in the car. I missed her head on my shoulder during movies. I missed the version of us that existed before I understood how often she needed me to feel replaceable so she could feel wanted. But missing someone is not the same as trusting them. So I wrote, Me. I miss who we were when I didn't have to compete for basic respect. She didn't respond. That was the last real message between us. About a month later, I went to a small backyard dinner at Marcus's place. No Chase. No Lauren. No performance. Just a few people sitting around eating burgers off paper plates while somebody's dog tried to steal chips from a lawn chair. At one point, Tessa asked if I was okay being around everyone again. I said, I'm okay being around people who don't expect me to pretend. That became my new standard. I didn't demand that every friend choose me. Some didn't. Some stayed close to Lauren because they had known her longer. Some kept inviting Chase to things because they didn't want to make it awkward, which is a funny phrase people use after someone else already made it unbearable. I stopped trying to convince them. I told the group once, through Marcus because I wasn't interested in another chat debate, that I would not attend events where Chase was invited if Lauren was using him to keep the old triangle alive. Not as a threat, not as an ultimatum, just information. A few people thought that was harsh. That was fine. I had spent too long editing myself to make disrespect easier for other people to digest. Lauren lost more than she expected. Not everyone abandoned her, but people saw the pattern. They saw the texts. They saw Chase refuse to protect her once the joke stopped being fun. They saw that I hadn't stormed out and left her helpless. I had offered her a ride. I had offered her a safe way home. She chose a performance. And Chase? He got what he wanted for one night. The ego boost. The smirk. The little victory of opening a car door while another man stood there humiliated. But after that, he looked smaller to everyone who mattered. Not dangerous. Not romantic. Not some passionate ex who understood Lauren better than I did. Just a guy who liked winning games no one else agreed to play. As for me, I didn't suddenly become some colder, tougher version of myself. I still care too much sometimes. I still overthink texts. I still have the jumper cables in my trunk, because apparently that part of me is permanent. But I learned the difference between being secure and being silent. Being secure doesn't mean you let someone disrespect you so nobody can accuse you of jealousy. It doesn't mean you smile while your girlfriend turns your patience into a stage. It doesn't mean you compete with an ex who keeps showing up because your partner keeps saving him a seat. I didn't lose to Chase. I quit a game I never agreed to play. And the quietest part of the whole ending was also the most satisfying. A few weeks after everything, I made coffee one morning and realized I had stopped buying Lauren's oat milk. There was no drawer half open with her things spilling out. No phone buzzing with a fight I didn't start. No group chat waiting to decide whether my pain was reasonable. Just my kitchen, my coffee, my silence. And for the first time in years, silence didn't feel like something I had to swallow. It felt like peace. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.